It's another episode of Social Distancing at the Chamber, a little segment we have sometimes called Happy Hour with Hammer. We are joined by the Chamber CEO, Glenn Hammer. Glenn, welcome to the show.
Good to be back on.
You got out of the house yesterday. You ventured to Honeywell's Sky Harbor facility. The president was in town. Honeywell's cranking out N95 masks by the truckload. What did you see? What was your experience? What did you think?
Well, it was my return to sort of social activity. Right. So it was an energizing and an inspiring day because the N95 mask, that's the gold standard. And there's bipartisan agreement that we need to make more of that type of equipment, healthcare type personal protective equipment here in the United States. And I thought much bigger deal than me venturing out of my home for my first sort of public type appearance in 6 or 7 weeks, I've lost track of time, right, was the President of the United States coming to Arizona, coming to this Honeywell N95 facility as his first trip outside of DC, really, in a public way since the pandemic began. There was a great spirit in that room yesterday. You
were saying that, look, any presidential appearance, it's going to come with a certain amount of pageantry or maybe a little, sticking it to the other side. But you were saying this one was pretty light on the partisanship stuff. It was really more about the project that's being accomplished there.
It was really a completely nonpartisan event. It was the focus was on the ability to manufacture these life-saving masks. The numbers are just unbelievable. Yeah. Between the Phoenix facility and the Rhode Island facility, they're going to be pumping out 20 million of these a month. And it's also good for Arizona as well. Through Governor Ducey and Sandra Watson at the Arizona Commerce Authority, 6 billion of those masks are going to be used here in Arizona, protecting our healthcare professionals and our first responders.
Yeah, it's we've talked about when this announcement was made. It's a great American story. It's manufacturing, it's ingenuity and know-how here on U.S. shores. But boy, what a great Arizona story too.
And I'll tell you what also came out is how fond the president is of Governor Ducey. I mean, he was clearly had some prepared remarks, but he would go off them. It seemed like every third sentence to talk about how impressed he's been with Governor Ducey and how much he appreciates that consultation. So, in terms of Arizona being well served, I'll just say if you're in a global pandemic, having that direct line into the White House is a pretty important thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Have you gotten over taking all the grief you took on social media for the way you were wearing your mask?
That was a little embarrassing. I'm in a mask facility. I hadn't posted an Instagram. I mean, there's only so much interesting things I could find in the Hammer household at this point. Although I am right now living with two teenage girls, so I probably could have figured out some other stuff. But yeah, I mean, I had it on my mouth, but it was not properly covering my nose. In fact, it was probably conspicuously underneath my nose. Put it on Instagram, and people responded, "Hey, buddy, get it over your nose." So I did repost today. There was a picture of me. I did adjust, by the way. I did appreciate those comments. I did course correct.
Right.
Probably while the president was speaking, if I may be completely upfront about that. Mm-hmm. And I do have a picture up on my Instagram account where I believe I am wearing it properly.
A teachable moment, but we're glad to see the course correction.
And I will wear the mask when I'm going out in public. I'm going to wear it, and I'm going to try to wear it properly, so we don't have any more of those. Well, that one was certainly self-inflicted. I'm the one who posted it, but we are in a new day. We want to keep people safe. So, we're going to learn as we move forward to how we could best protect ourselves and others.
I had a friend who told me that he was at a restaurant last night picking up his to-go order. Obviously, it was to-go. getting his Cinco de Mayo feast, and there were some women in the restaurant. They apparently recognized one another, and then they began to have a conversation and pulled their masks down. So that's not how it's supposed to work. So I guess we're all learning, right?
We're all learning, and just as someone who I don't think I ever wore a mask before the situation struck. It's tough to keep it over your nose, and then you have to. And now I understand what some of the officials were saying earlier on. You've got to be careful. If something gets in your hand and you're adjusting your mask because it's fallen down, we're all going to learn some things through this.
Yeah. All right.
But it was I'll just say it was a great day. I mean, I couldn't, and one of the things that really also struck me is that there were at least three Honeywell employees who spoke in addition to the CEO, and the dedication that these men and women have to the task in hand is just, it's so gratifying. And there was just a sense, we're the United States of America, we're the greatest country that's ever existed. We're going to come together. We're going to use our brains. We're going to use our hard work, and we're going to get to the other side of that. So there was that type of spirit that we've got this.
Yeah.
It's going to take some time, but we're on the case.
Yeah. Your chamber colleagues, we've had a chance to spend some time out there at these Honeywell facilities. And Glenn, as you know, it's everything from general aviation to national defense to the thermostat on your wall. Smart people out there.
Oh, well, they've got the 3D printing. They've got the Internet of Things. I'm sorry. Well, they have the super duper connected plane. Actually, I had a good chance to talk to, I believe, a cousin of a good friend of ours, Senator Drake's, now Judge Drake's, who's involved in the fast internet connectivity on planes.
Yep.
So when we get to the other side of this, the great news is we're going to be streaming great movies while we're going through the air, and hopefully on a Boeing plane, on one of our member airlines, and watching Netflix movies thanks to Honeywell. So we're going to see that day.
Absolutely. All right, issue 2, regular check-in with our congressional delegation. Up today, Congressman Ruben Gallego for a quick 30-minute conversation. Always enjoy hearing from the delegation. Any takeaways from your conversation with the congressman today?
We had what I thought was a very productive conversation with Congressman Gallego. First of all, I deeply appreciate his commitment to small business. He had some very good ideas that he was injecting into the conversation about how we could get funds to the small businesses more efficiently. There's a play for perhaps a more direct route through the IRS, but he strongly supports the Paycheck Protection Program. Strongly supports making sure that that's going out to small businesses, and he's also, I thought, had very thoughtful comments on liability reform, on funding for state and cities, for best practices for our defense firms. I just thought it was just a great conversation across the board. His comments on testing, about the importance of getting more testing out there. We're able to inject into the conversation all the great things. University of Arizona, Arizona State, Sonora Quest. I mean, we're really ramping up testing. So I thought it was a really good 30 minutes.
Yeah, it was good. He mentioned, unfortunately, it's an old story, even in a short compressed timeline. First round of Paycheck Protection Program, little rocky. Round 2, the reviews have been better. It's, up for the most improved award. You're hearing that the funds are actually finally getting to the businesses.
Oh, it's absolutely, Garrick. I mean, so the first one, we had about 19,000 businesses, and it may have been about $4.5 billion, and I'm just going from memory.
Yeah.
Round 2, which is not over yet, there's still some real funds to be distributed. Over 44,000 or so businesses have received authorization, and that represents, I believe, like the 3.5, $4 billion, somewhere in that range. So the loans that could be convertible grants really are much smaller than the first round. We're getting a lot more businesses involved. And, I'll just plug our very own program, and Laura Siscomani does a great job running with the Arizona Small Business Association and the Chamber. CaresActAZ.com with the latest and greatest on what small businesses need to do to apply, and ultimately we hope be approved for those PPP loans.
Yeah. Good work being done, not only out of our shop, but really appreciate Congressman Gallego joining us today. It was a good call. All right, last topic, Glenn. I wanted to get your take on this. There has been a debate sort of in armchair political pundit world for a long time. Do deficits matter? Some say politically they don't, but these chickens might come home to roost eventually. Others, if you read certain opinion pages, guys like Krugman would say, it doesn't really matter as a percentage of the overall U.S. economy. I'm reading from a Associated Press story here. The U.S. government has opened the spigots and let loose nearly, what's the number, Glenn? $3 trillion to try to rescue the economy. And yet the response, even from people who built careers as skeptics of federal debt, almost no one has blinked. What's your take on the response and the big number and whether deficits and debt matters?
Deficits and debt do matter. There's no doubt over time that's the case, because it will crowd out private investment. However, this is a war type situation. Yeah. It just so happens we're all on the same side, fighting a virus. Right now, you have to figure that with 30 million unemployed since the pandemic struck, losing probably at least $1 trillion worth of output every month, throwing the kitchen sink financially, but still in a smart way, in a measured way, in terms of some of these business programs, is worth every penny. And we're going to have to, and in the call with Congressman Gallego, he said that we're most likely going to need to do more, particularly with small business, and every penny is worth it. When you think about almost all of these businesses were not only solvent, Garrick, they were rocking and rolling before this thing struck. So if we could keep these intact, my view, these businesses will come back over time. Employment will come back over time. But if our small business community is just obliterated, and a lot, have no more than 30 days worth of cash on hand, we will slip into a depression, and it will be prolonged. So I'd rather, I don't know if it's penny wise, pound foolish. This is the time to table that conversation. There will be a time where we're going to need to re-engage, but right now it is saving the economy, keeping people safe, and the fastest way possible on a war type mentality, defeating this sucker.
Look, if there's a positive here, Glenn, and we've talked about a few things when we get on the other side of this pandemic that we've learned some really good lessons that we might adopt going forward. The U.S. economy is enormous, and we are going to be in a hole, but the U.S. economy is a very big shovel. So we can get out of this if we play our cards right now.
And we're going to come out of it with certain, we will come out of this stronger in some ways. It will be like a 911 thing, is that we're never going to have something like this sneak up against us. People are going to incorporate more efficiencies into their operations. And that may mean less trips that are unnecessary. I'm not talking about planes, because people will be flying, but you think about all the trips around town and the office and stuff like that. Don't necessarily need all of them. We're going to better integrate video technology into our world as we've been doing. So and also just the better hygiene, the washing our hands, keeping some degree of space. It's not only going to mean reducing transmission for COVID-19, and eventually we'll have better treatments, and I do think a vaccine, but things like the flu or the common cold, I think we'll see positive reductions in those other areas that may not be as deadly, but are can be deadly, and certainly are debilitating to a lot of people.
Absolutely. All right, Glenn. Another day in the books. We'll throw this up on the interweb, and our dozens of viewers can watch this. More guests in the pipeline. We got some good ones lined up, and we'll catch you on the next episode.
Have a good night, Garrick. Thank you.